Hi, today I'm going to be presenting on Patricia Polacco. If you Google Patricia Polacco, you will come up with her website. And this is kind of how I present to a first grade classroom. I try to find their website and I pull things out of it because it would take too long to read all of that. But then they can access this at home or share it with mom and dad too what they're learning in the classroom. I would read Patricia Polacco's books maybe in two different time periods throughout the day to my first grade classroom because sometimes the books can be a bit long and hard for them to sit for a really long time. Anyway, Patricia Polacco was born in Lansing, Michigan, and she lived with her mother and father until she was about 3 years old and her parents divorced. Her mother then moved in with her parents in Union City, Michigan, and they spent time living in this house on a farm. This is a picture of Patricia when she was younger, and this is a picture of Patricia's father. His family had come from Ireland, and here's a picture of Patricia and her mother's family came from Russia and the Ukraine. And she said some of her best times were spent on the farm. She lived with her mother during the school year and her father's in the summer. But while she lived with her parents, they lived at her grandparents' homes. And from living with her grandparents, she said she really, really was inspired and learned to be a good storyteller because they didn't have a TV, and the grandparents would tell her stories about when they grew up. So you will see in a lot of her books that she usually has an elderly person and a young person, and there's often a lesson to each of her stories. Here's a picture of a meteor, and she brings a piece of the meteor rock with her to when she presents at school. She wrote a book called The Meteor, and she talks about how this rock fell in her family's yard and is now the headstone at the cemetery for them. Here is a picture of Patricia Polacco when she was younger. In 1949, after her grandmother passed away, her mother moved with her brother, Patricia's brother, to Oakland, California, and she went to school there. And she said school was hard for her because she couldn't read. She did not learn how to read till she was 14 years old, and a teacher discovered that she had dyslexia. And so she, while she was younger, really put all of her energy into art and became a good drawer and a good painter and also a good sculptor. So she said that helped her get through those first couple of years of school until she learned how to read. Some of her best friends, and she calls them her extended family, are pictured here, and there's also a story, you'll see them pictured in one of the books. Stuart Washington, she spent a lot of time at his house and listening to his family's stories, and they were from Louisiana, and she said they were also an inspiration for many of her stories and books. Here is a picture of Patricia Polacco. She went to fine art school, and she got a major in fine arts, and she also got a PhD in art history, which helped her with writing and illustrating her books. And here's Patricia Polacco. She did not start writing and illustrating children's books until she was 41 years old, and she has illustrated and wrote about 77 children's books. One nice thing about the website, it's kind of nice to put the pictures and words with it. You can find out a little bit more about who inspired Patricia. Here she kind of mentions Beatrix Potter. She said the Grimm's fairy tales inspired her. Also, Dr. Seuss, she mentions Jan Barrett, Tommy DePaula. She said her art inspiration came from Norman Rockwell. Here is a picture of her current home. She currently lives on that farm she grew up on in Union City. She loves to entertain and invite people out. She shares her home with two of her cats, Mischief and Little Gray. She also has some sheep and goats, and she likes to take them for walks. She says she loves to entertain and share her home with her friends and family. She also plans on doing press conferences there and talking about her books. So if you watch her website and you're interested in that and you get a chance to visit Michigan, you might be able to see Patricia Polacco. Also, her author studio, she used to work at home, but she found out that she needed more space to create her books. Now I can't get back to here. Hang on one second, we'll see if it goes back. Anyway, she has a studio, and at her studio, it's about a few blocks away from her home, and she spreads out all of her work. She says it takes her about a year to produce a book, and she says from start to finish, she begins, and it takes her about 1 to 2 months to write and rewrite the story. And then she creates a dummy book where she does the illustrations, and then after that takes about a month, she sends it off to her art editor, and then her art editor looks it over and they send it back, and that takes about a month for all those changes to happen. Then it takes her about another month or 2 months to do the colors for the book and get it all together, and then she says she sends it off, and it takes about a month for them to do the colors that are going to be printed in the book to separate the colors, and that happens in New York. And once that's done, it's sent off to Hong Kong, where most picture books are printed, and that takes about a month in Hong Kong for the book to be made. And then it is shipped back to the United States and waits in a warehouse until it can be put out on store shelves for its publication date. She, again, has created over 77 books. Most of her books use pencil, acetone markers, acrylic paint, oil pastels. And if you see in her books, she uses real photographs of the people that are mentioned in the book, too. I'm going to begin with one of my favorite books here. I need to. And it's a historical fiction book. And I picked this book, John Philip Duck, because it's based on these real ducks at the Peabody Hotel. And the fictitious part of the story is Edward and how he got these ducks. He found a duck, and he wanted this pet duck to come with him to work, and he was able to convince his dad. And the story takes time during the Great Depression, so they can't lose their job at the hotel. So he keeps the duck hidden, but one day the boss sees his duck. And in order for Edward to keep his pet duck, he has to train the ducks to get in and out of the fountain at work. The ducks must walk into the fountain and stay there the entire day. Edward trains the ducks. Everybody is impressed, and people want to come from all over to see these ducks. So I just thought this was such an endearing story. This is a great book, too, to look at for vivid verbs. And if you want to show your class the real Peabody ducks, you just YouTube Peabody ducks, and you can see. I'm going to spin this up so it's not too long. The real ducks at the Peabody Hotel. All right, so that's Philip Duck, and the kids really enjoyed seeing that, and that there were actual ducks that the story was based on. There is the man that did train the ducks for over 60 years is called Edward. He inspired. It was at the Peabody Hotel, and it was based on him. But he truly didn't bring his pet duck to school. He was actually a trainer for the circus that ended up working there. Robert McCloskey was his name.